Welcome to Online Hub Audio Library Recording. The following day, Grusha picks the baby and heads for the north with it, p.29. On the way, she has to buy the baby milk. Even thought the old man sells the milk exorbitantly, she sacrifices her 2-week salary to buy it for the sake of the baby. When she realizes she can no longer feed the baby, she decides to leave it on the doorstep of the fat peasant woman, who has plenty of milk, a husband, and a roof over her head. Number 4. Social class inequality. Social class inequality is a situation whereby a society is divided into groups according to their economic, political, and social status. In the text, the difference between the rich and the poor is very pronounced. While the Grand Duke, the governor, the princes, and their families are affluent, other members of society are poor and dying of hunger. Georgia Bashley, the governor, is as rich as Croesus, while he has many beggars in his doorsteps and petitioners in his courtyard. When he and his family goes to church, the baby is brought in an expensive carriage accompanied by 2 doctors. The poor people, on the other hand, display their thin, emaciated babies while others hold up crutches and petitions. The children of the poor are sent to war, but when they get injured, they are not compensated. The children of the rich, on the other hand, are not sent to war. Despite all the poverty around, the governor has employed 2 doctors to look after Michael even though he is not sick. Poor people such as Grusha cannot get even time to go to church on Easter Sunday, as she is forced to go and look for a goose for the family dinner. Despite her hard work, she will not even eat it herself. Number 6. Justice. There is a lot of injustice in the text, mostly perpetuated by the rich, the powerful, and those in authority. The people seek justice through the courts, through petitioning the governor, and sometimes through seeking revenge on their own. Justice is dispensed primarily through the court system. However, this is not as portrayed in the text. In the prologue, the delegate from Tiflis comes to hear and determine the case between the goat herders and the fruit growers. Justice is seen to be served when, first, each group is given a chance to explain why they deserve the farm. After their presentations, the delegate decides in favor of the fruit farmers because they have more elaborate plans for the farm. Even though the goat herders are the original owner of the land, they don't have any meaningful plans for it. The verdict in this case is arrived at on the basis of reasonable consensus rather than strict law. The 2 parties are satisfied with the decision, and they decide to partake in drinking together. The people also seek justice through petitioning the governor. However, this is not a good option because he does not heed to their cries, and instead they are whipped and pushed back by the iron shirts. The beggars and petitioners have various grievances, including too much tax, corrupt officials, arrested family members, etc. When the governor is overthrown by the fat prince, the people feel a sense of justice, which is, however, short-lived. Judge Azdak represents justice, especially to the poor. When he discovers that he has been harboring the Grand Duke, he tells Shawa to take him to the city for judgment. Unfortunately, at Nuka, the city judge has been hung and Azdak cannot get the justice he wants. Ironically, Azdak is appointed judge after he impresses the ironshirts with his knowledge of the legal system and the injustices that the people have suffered. Judge Azdak practices a brand of justice that, in some cases, sets the guilty free and punishes the victims. He largely rules in favor of the poor as a way of addressing the injustice that they have long suffered. For example, he rules in favor of the doctor, who is accused of neglecting his patient. He rules against Ludovica, who is a victim of rape. He acquits the old woman accused of theft. He rules in favor of Grusha, and even erroneously signs off the divorce of Grusha and Jessup instead of the old couple. Number 7. Political and social instability. Political and social instability in society is a result of poor leadership. Poor leadership, on the other hand, leads to other social problems such as hunger, insecurity, injustice, and poverty. When the people get fed up, they may choose to forcefully remove those in office through a coup or an uprising. This, in turn, brings about political and social instability through war. In the prologue, the setting is in the ruins of what was once a thriving Caucasian village before the war. Everything in the village has been ruined. Tobacco is rationed and wine. The villagers have also lost many people as a result of political warfare. The goat herders have been forced to leave their land and go elsewhere on orders from the government. Major themes in the Caucasian Chalk Circle. Political instability often affects the poor more than the rich. The singer comments, "When the house of a great one collapses, many little ones are slain." Political instability leads to displacement of people as evidenced by the Grand Duke, who has to run and seek refuge in the house of Azdak. Natella also has to run to the capital for her own safety, while Grusha heads for the north. Political instability also creates food shortages, as seen when Grusha is unable to get milk for Michael. She is forced to pay 2 piasters for a little drop. The old man says, "We have no milk. The soldiers from the city have our goats. Go to the soldiers if you want milk." Number 8. Deceit, religiosity, and hypocrisy. Deceit is dishonesty, whereas hypocrisy is when a person's actions are different from what he says. Religiosity, on the other hand, is whereby one pretends to be religious, but his her actions are contrary to the religion that he follows. Many characters in the text are either deceitful, pious, or hypocritical. Georgia Bashwali, the governor, is deceitful and hypocritical when he and his family attend church on Easter Sunday. On the doorway, they are met by beggars and petitioners who want help from him. He, however, does not bother to listen to their cries, and instead allows his bodyguards to whip them and push them back. This is contrary to what a devoted Christian should do. While the family goes to church, they don't care to allow the servants, like Grusha, time to go to church as well. The fat prince is deceitful and hypocritical when he also attends church, and even wishes his brother a happy Easter Sunday and bows before Michael. The fat prince does all this while he knows that he will behead the governor after the church service. Religiosity, hypocrisy, and excessive piety is displayed by Ineko. When Grusha arrives at her brother's, she is hungry and worn out, but instead of Ineko welcoming her warmly and sympathizing with her, she questions her especially about the child. When Grusha collapses due to fatigue, Ineko quickly accuses her of carrying scarlet fever, a dangerous infectious disease. Lavrenti is hypocritical as well when he pretends to help Grusha by marrying her off to a dying man, instead of giving her a place to stay in his own home. He even uses his own money to pay off the mother-in-law to accept the marriage to take place. The monk is hypocritical when he accepts to be paid to keep quiet about the existence of a child. He is also dishonest because he is drunk instead of being a role model for others in society. The mourners are also hypocritical by the way they seem to be concerned with the food being served instead of the impending death of Jessup. Grusha suffers as a result of the deception, hypocrisy, and religiosity around her. She suffers under the roof of the governor. She is mistreated in her brother's house, and because of Jessup's deception, she gets a husband she does not want. Number 9. Conflict/antagonism. A conflict is a disagreement between 2 or more individuals or groups. The text addresses several conflicts, such as the conflict between the 2 land-owning groups, the rich and the poor, the governor and the princes, Grusha and Natella, and Grusha and Jessup. Firstly, the play begins with a conflict between the goat herders' collective farm and the fruit-growing commune. These 2 groups quarrel over the ownership of the valley that has been left by the Soviet army after the end of the war. The fruit growers want to develop the land for farming, while the goat herders want it because it originally belonged to them. A delegate from the State Reconstruction Commission is sent from Tiflis, the capital, to hear their case. A decision is made to award the fruit growers because of their good plans for the valley. When a writer creates a story, there is something that he/she wants to communicate to the reader or listener. This message is called a theme. Usually, poems and short stories and poems may contain 1 or 2 themes, but novels and plays usually have many themes. Secondly, the poor and the rich are in conflict over resources. The governor, George Abashwali, is extremely rich, yet he ignores the plight of those under him. His courtyard is filled with beggars and petitioners who want his assistance, but he gives them the deaf ear. He ignores the pleas from the beggars and parents holding emaciated children in their hands. Instead, the iron-shirts whip and push back the poor to give way for the governor and his family. In contrast, the governor spends a lot of money on his son's clothes, carriage, and even intends to build him a palace. He also has plans to demolish slums belonging to the poor to give room for his garden. The poor welcome the death of the governor and support the coup that also overthrows the Grand Duke from power. Thirdly, the princes have a conflict with the governor and the Grand Duke. The country is at war, which is being fought by the princes. The princes, however, feel that they are not receiving enough support from the Grand Duke and the governor. They devise a plot to overthrow the two leaders by killing them. While the Grand Duke manages to escape, the governor is caught and beheaded in his palace. Eventually, the Grand Duke secures support from other countries, and he manages to take back his seat and kills the fat prince and the other conspirators. Number 10. Love. Love is presented in the following ways. Parental love, i.e. the love that parents have for their children. Filial love, i.e. the love that exists between siblings, and romantic love, which is the intimate love between two people of the opposite sex who are not related by blood. Parental love is the love that a father or mother has for the child. However, the text shows that one does not need to be the real parent in order to have parental love for a child. Natella, who is Michael's real mother, does not show much love for him. She is more concerned with her material possessions than her child. She, for instance, wastes time packing her clothes and jewelry that she does not know that Michael has been left behind when war breaks out in the city. The governor, on the other hand, shows an extreme form of parental love by showering Michael with a lot of care and wealth. He wants to construct a palace for him and has even hired 2 doctors to take care of him. Grusha displays parental love when she takes Michael as her own son and protects him from the fat prince and the ironshirts who want to kill him. She spends all her money on him and even risks her own life when she hits the corporal on the head and dares to cross the rotten bridge for his sake. Even though she had promised Simon that she would wait for him, she goes ahead and agrees to marry Jessup so that Michael could have a home. Grusha's love for Michael shows itself before the court when she is unable to pull him too hard out of the chalk circle, and that is why Judge Azdak rules in her favor. Romantic love is evident in Simon and Grusha. Before Simon leaves for the capital, he leaves Grusha a necklace as a symbol of their engagement. They promise not to get into other relationships but to wait for each other. However, when the war is over and Simon returns, he finds Grusha married and with a child. He is angry and demands his necklace back. On realizing the truth about Grusha's marriage and the child's identity, Simon decides to support Grusha during her case with Natella and even volunteers to tell the court that the child is his. In the end, the judge gives Grusha the child and grants her a divorce from Jessup, which allows Simon to have a wife and a child. Number 11. Irresponsibility. This is refusal to attend to one's duty or failure to do what one is expected. In the text, the leadership, especially on the part of the governor, is portrayed as very irresponsible. Georgi is very rich, and yet his people are extremely poor. He does not want to listen to their pleas, even though it is his responsibility, as a governor, to ensure that they have all the necessities of life. Instead of improving the poor people's houses, he wants to demolish them to give way for his own garden. When the governor attends church, he finds many beggars and petitioners waiting for him on the doorway. He shows no interest in them, and instead they are whipped back by his ironshirts. On the contrary, when it comes to his own son, he spends a lot of money on his clothes and even plans to put up a palace for him. He has hired 2 doctors to ensure he does not fall sick, and he is even driven in a golden carriage. Nutella is an irresponsible mother who not only neglects her duties as a mother, but also concentrates more on clothing and jewelry instead. After the governor is killed, Nutella runs away with the adjutant, but she forgets to check whether she has the baby with her. She spends time quarreling with her servants and picking her clothes and shoes that she does not confirm where the baby is. The end of themes in the Caucasian Chalk Circle. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like this audio. In the play, The Caucasian Chalk Circle, some of the major themes that Brecht addresses are: Number 1. Abuse of power/misuse of power. Abuse of power occurs when people in authority misuse the power bestowed upon them by virtue of their position or office. One may misuse his/her powers to enrich him/herself or to mistreat others. In the text, power is abused by the governor, Nutella, the soldiers/ironshirts, and the fat prince. The governor abuses power by enriching himself, whereas his people remain poor. He is said to be as rich as Croesus, with very many horses and a vast estate, yet many of his people are beggars. When he goes to church, he is confronted by many beggars, petitioners, and mothers with hungry children. They cry for him to reduce the high taxes. Refer to page 14. His son has 2 doctors, as seen in page 15, and he is said to be preparing to tear down slums to start the building of the east wing of his garden. He does not care about where the poor, slum people will go. Nutella is also seen to abuse her powers through her treatment of servants. She orders them around, insults them, and even uses physical violence on them. For example, she beats up a young woman whom she accuses of almost tearing up her dress. She tells her, "I'll kill you, you bitch," as seen in page 24. Number 2. Greed and materialism. Greed is whereby a person wants to have everything to him/herself. A materialistic person, on the other hand, is one who believes that money is more important than anything else in life. In the text, greed and materialism are evident in the governor, the fat prince, Nutella, the mother-in-law, the corporal, and others acquire more land by demolishing the houses of slum dwellers, while many of the governor's people and their children are sleeping hungry. Nutella is materialistic in the way she values her clothes and jewelry. She is not satisfied with what she has and still complains about her husband only building for his son. After her husband is arrested, she forgets about him and her baby and instead concentrates on ensuring that she carries all her clothes. In the end, she only bothers to look for Michael after she realizes that she needs him in order to inherit her husband's estates. Number 3. Selflessness. Selflessness is whereby puts the welfare of others ahead of his or her own. A selfless person will sacrifice what she has to the benefit of others who may be less privileged or vulnerable. In the text, Grusha shows a lot of selflessness, especially towards Michael, who is not her real child. First, when the governor is beheaded and Nutella takes off, Grusha decides to remain behind and take care of Michael the whole night. She is almost caught when the fat prince and the ironshirts come back to hang the governor's head on the doorway.